Hello, good evening, Black family, and welcome to another edition on the African, the Global African Conversation right here with me, Kwabena Bibini Berima, aka DJ Fuad, the public enemy who hates no one. I'm so excited tonight to come your way, not because we are having a black conversation, but the guest, the persona that we're going to be speaking to is somebody that has played an amazing role in the life of and the journey of this program, previously called the Diaspora Dialogue, and she was the person who gave us the name Diaspora Dialogue way back on S Live Africa. And right now, we have changed the name to the Global African Conversation for it to reflect the global and the bigger African and the Black community in the world. So tonight we are asking an important question: the debate, ongoing debate about right to abortion in the United States of America. The question we are asking here on the show is, what is in it for Black people? Should Black people be concerned about it? What should be their concern? Or should Black people just say, other people have gotten their fight and let them fight their fight? It's not our fight, or it's our fight, as we see most of the time. And we'll also look at the Black family. What is happening to the Black family? Is abortion the only way the Black society or the communities in the U.S. can reduce in size in terms of their population and all of that? This and many more is what we're going to be discussing with none other than the amazing, Blacknificent woman, Dr. Kanida Grooves. Let me give her a round of applause before she say hi. All right. Good evening, Doc.
Hey, good evening, Fuad. How are you, my dear?
I'm doing so well. It's been a long time we had a conversation like this.
It sure has. It's been too long, my friend.
Yes, and I'm happy we are going to be talking tonight. So, how is your area? Is it raining where you are?
No, although it's looking overcast, so we could get some rain just yet before the evening's over.
Oh, okay, okay, all right. So, Yoda, sound. So tonight, we want to look at the protests going on in the U.S. concerning the Supreme Court ruling about the right to have abortion and the right not to, and all of that. So the question we are asking is, what is in this, all of this, for the Black community or the Black man or Black woman or the Black people in the United States of America? What is in it for us?
You mean what is in the ruling? The
Yes,
recent ruling?
the ruling and the right to abortion in itself.
Yeah, it's a Pandora's box
Okay.
because you see the Africans in America, they are already besieged and besought with so many things that are not in their favor, that are going against them, and this doesn't make their journey any easier one way or the other.
Hmm. So, if I got you right, what you mean is that um, the Black community in America have been fighting a lot of fights that does not, in the end, that's not yield to their benefits. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, this just complicates things more for them, you know, and you have to you have to consider the original intention
Mm-hmm.
of the legalized abortions, which primarily came through, or popularly, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
came by way of Planned Parenthood. And this was not something that was in consideration of helping or supporting poor or sick whites or people of color and African Americans, the Africans in America in particular. So that's the inception of it. It's not had a good start, just like America has not had a good start. It wasn't as we know it today, and as the story is told today, it was not started by a whole bunch of well-meaning pilgrims coming to that landmass. You know, there were already people already there who somehow got discovered and then civilized, and then suddenly now, you know, America is what it is. But anyway, that's another conversation for another day. But my point is to say that this whole abortion issue, as we know it today, had its similar beginnings, had its similar start.
Okay.
What you'll hear a lot of times are people saying that there are folks with medical emergencies that really do require the pregnancy to be terminated, and that is a small percentage, and that concern is true. That's an accurate, fair concern, but it does not account for the majority of abortions.
Okay.
And then there is the argument that there are rapes that occur, which is absolutely true, and some people get pregnant from this unfortunate crime. And of course, that also does not account for the majority of abortions. And then you hear about cases of incest. And we can all appreciate the unpleasantness, to put it politely, of carrying to term such a child from such a coupling. And yet we know that this also does not account for the majority of abortion. So it's a complicated issue in that it gets infused with a lot of emotions. It gets infused with an incredible amount of politics. It gets infused with anti-African sentiments. It gets infused with all types of things that makes it anything but an easy conversation to have.
Okay. So let me ask you, being a mother and being an African American yourself, what is your personal take on right to abortion?
Well, I think that the Africans in America have not had the luxury of having a complete and protected conversation about this to arrive at some conclusions on their own.
Okay.
They've been so interfered with and so tampered with and so intimidated and so co-opted and so scripted and so programmed until we don't even really know what we really think. And we've not even had the opportunity, as so many other people groups have, to even reach back culturally and say, well, culturally, what was the belief and attitudes about this from Mama Africa? You know, what can we synthesize from African culture to help us, make sense out of all of this? We popularly say it takes a village to raise a child. We rightly say that it's good for our boys and girls to go through rites of passages programs. We rightly ritualize weddings and births and naming ceremonies and funerals, but we get to this issue and somehow we just follow suit and just say, well, it's up to the woman. And then that's it. And it's another case of if we want it's another case of the mainstream culture in America saying, if I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. Okay. And so we don't get to conceptualize this under an African framework, under the African worldview. We step out of line and out of character, as it were, and we are parroting other people's values and other people's ideals and not our own.
Okay.
And so this has been my belief for a very long time, and I think it's a big part of the problem that we're suffering from. Look, I read years ago, I read a statistic that said that were it not for teenage pregnancies in the Black community, our numbers, our population growth numbers would be at a negative growth rate. Now, I've not looked up any of those statistics recently, but it was something that I read some years ago.
Okay.
And when one considers the incarceration rates, the murder rates, when one considers the diseases that we die at the most, when one considers the low life expectancy, it could be argued on the one hand, I don't even think we have the luxury to be talking about we should be able to get abortions when we want to, because of all of these factors, you see. But having said that, let me hasten to say, we've not yet been accorded the opportunity to sit down and have this conversation with each other, because there's all of this external meddling and choreographing.
Okay. Okay. Now the reason why I decided we're going to have this conversation was the fact that I was monitoring the protests and all of that, and the debates for and against, and that some Black activists are saying that, look, if you look at the current trend that is happening in the U.S., the right to not to have abortion, that is banning abortion, is happening in the white communities rather than in the Black communities. Have this assertion come to your attention?
Well, I think the statistics have shown for some time, numerically speaking, that the Anglo-American,
You have just 1 minute remaining.
than do the Africans in America. And I think that's been a statistics that has been a statistic that has been so for quite some time.
Okay. And you also brought in the Black family where you have marriage ceremonies, right to passage, and all of that. Another thing that other Black people are also actually looking at is that the Black community, as we speak, is not taking care of its family system lineage, how to bring up children. It's like there's too many children who don't even have father figures and all of that.
You have no call credit in your MTN account. Please recharge.
We're going to recharge, definitely. Dr. Kanida Groves is off the line. We're going to reach out and bring her back into the conversation. All right, so we are trying to bring Dr. Kanida Groves back on the line to continue the conversation. We are talking about the right to abortion and right not to have abortion in the U.S. and its implication for the Black community, as it were. And Doc was on her way giving us some insight into the black family and how they are. So what I was trying to put across, Dr. Kaneda Group to respond to was the fact that the black community already is suffering from some Western lifestyles. Like now, a lot of black male are becoming feminized. I want to say feminized. Some are becoming gays. Some are becoming bisexuals, and all of that. Yes, of course, they're in a country where these things are allowed. And what is the implication on the black family? And when we get Doc on the line, we are also going to actually look critically at what do you call it? We're going to look critically at feminization of black male in particular. Hello, Doc. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. You were saying something about fathers. You were saying something. Yes, you were saying something about. Okay, you were saying something about fathers not taking care of their children or something like that
Yes.
before we got cut off.
Yeah, that is one. Two, people are also concerned about the more reason why they think that blacks shouldn't even concern themselves about right to abort or not to abort is that one, the black communities, you talk about incarceration, mass incarceration of the black male, and people are also concerned about high, increasing feminization of the black male. A lot of black male are turning into feminists in practice. Plus, a lot of black male becoming gays and whatnot. All of this is has a way of decreasing the black population. How do we talk about these issues now juxtapose it to the abortion rights and what have you?
Well, again, we have to discuss this from within our own cultural framework. We have to stop being told what the problem is,
Okay.
and then being told what the answer to the problem is. We have to define the problem from within our own cultural framework. That's what everybody else is doing. Why should we do any different?
Okay.
And, I remember many years ago having a conversation with a friend of mine. Many years ago, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine from Burkina Faso. Her name is Sabamfu Somé. She's an ancestor now. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
What?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So I was having a conversation with her, and she's from Burkina Faso. Okay, she's from Burkina Faso. Okay, very good. And she was explaining to me that there's a ritual that is done prior to conception. Prior to conception, there's a ritual that is done to try and inquire and learn about the one that is about to come. This is prior to conception. Now it's a little
hello, Doc. We are trying to call you back on a normal call. I think the app, the internet is dropping. So we are trying to call you back on the normal call.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Yes. Thank
So
you.
what I was saying is that there's all of this ritual that my friend Banfu Somé
Mhm.
of Burkina Faso, who's now an ancestor, she was explaining to me the rituals that take place prior to conception for the mother and father,
Mhm.
and then the ritual that takes place after conception,
Mhm.
and then rituals that take place prior to birth and then after birth, after the child is born.
Mm.
So when you consider that there is great import put on a person before they are conceived,
Mhm.
it makes it a little bit odd to think that we can now behave the way the European or Anglo-Americans behave and just arbitrarily say, well, I think I want to get an abortion because I just don't want to be pregnant.
Mm.
You can begin to see how that kind of doesn't really make sense. Now, of course, this is the context of this is consensual sex in a appropriate relationship, right?
Mhm.
This is different than, if for the other things that I mentioned earlier.
Mm.
So, so it's again, we have to have these conversations within our cultural context, and that's something that is where our main discussions are taking place is just virtually unheard of.
Okay.
And so what happens is that we end up grabbing for straws, and we end up making a bunch of emotional arguments. We end up parroting people. We end up talking about things and hanging our coats on the stuff out of convenience and catch as catch can. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. Not much, at least.
Mm. So what you are saying is that from the conversation you had from this Burkinabe friend, can you therefore say that is why some of these tendencies are low? I'm not saying they are not on the motherland in Africa, but the rate at which every child grows up and say that I want to be gay, I want to be lesbian, I want to be bisexual, it's low here. Can you say that because of some of these cultural practices in marriage and the family system, some of which we still hold on to, is a factor, and that if the family in America is going to get better, they need to inculcate some of these cultural practices that is still ongoing on the motherland?
Well, historically, when you look at African history, you look at a lot of the books that have been written about African culture and society. There are, whatever you want to attribute it to, what we do know is that compared to other people groups, there are very low numbers of I'll call it the alphabet people. There are very low numbers of alphabet people incidences. In fact, there's a book called Survival of the Sickest. And in this book, one of the things that is talked about is mentioned, and it's been this, I've not read the updated, if there is a re-edited version of this book, I don't know. But anyway, what it's talking about in one of the chapters is that 20% of white people will never get HIV/AIDS compared to 5% of African ascendant people. And what the author explains makes sense out of that. How she makes sense out of that is to say that those numbers, when you look at populations, those numbers are a clear indication that that you had a far greater precedent and prominence of homosexual activity. Hence, the population developed antibodies, if you will, or immunity, if you will, to HIV/AIDS than you have in African populations, where it's only 5%. She makes the same case for various other diseases, right? So I think yes, there are some things culturally that is true to that. But there's also some things biologically that's true to that. There's also some things environmentally that is true to that. You know, it's not one single answer, I think, that accounts for the difference in those numbers.
Okay. Let me also ask this, that can we conclude that some of this rights that comes up, especially with the topic under discussion, that is rights to abortion and all of that, can we say that religion has a role to play in how the debate is done?
Oh, it does. It has a very big role.
Okay.
I firmly believe, it's my personal and my professional opinion, that religion tends to dumb people down.
Okay.
And it tends to shrink wrap our capacity for deep thought. And notice, I hope people are recognizing that I'm saying tends to.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons for this is that religions generally are closed systems.
Okay.
Right? They have a finite, specific set of beliefs. Believe this way, walk this way, talk this way, dress this way, eat this way, etc., etc. Some more so than others, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a closed system. Spirituality is an open system. There really isn't much of a walk this way, talk this way, eat this way kind of a thing to it. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at the role, you know, when you look at a lot of the nature or the tenets or the tone of religion, a lot of it is quite hostile and quite violent. And it's not only violent in its evolution and how it's come into what we know it today, but it's violent in a lot of its teachings and a lot of its content. Now, having said that, there are a lot of people who are religious who are on both sides of the argument. But again, we Africans, and especially the Africans in America, we have to really have our own conversations about this. For example, if you listen carefully to the argument, the tagline is a woman's right to choose what to do with her body. Well, of course, it's her body is her body, but the issue is the person that's inside of her. Does she have the right to do what she wants to the person inside of her? That's not her body. That's a separate life force. That's a separate entity. They don't even share blood. And so again, we've not even really fleshed this out enough to even address that issue. We keep talking about a woman's right with her own body. Well, yeah, where it comes to her skin, her organs, her fluid, her hair, her fingernails, that's her stuff. But when you have someone or more than one growing inside of you, that's not an organ. This is not tissue like muscle tissue or organ tissue or hair or skin or something like that, or you know, or fat, a fatty deposit, or a cyst, or some other type of tumor, right? This is an actual person or people growing inside of you. And so do you have the right to do to him or her or them whatever you want, whenever you want?
Yes, I get you. But as you explained earlier on, when it gets to the point of life and death for the host, that's the mother, that one for me, I think it's accepted. But one question that I want to ask you is, with the right to abortion laws, if a state says that abortion is banned in this state, is it the case that even if the life in the mother is detrimental to the health of the mother, that state is not going to allow abortion for the mother, or there's a leeway when it comes to death threats to the host?
So generally, states, as you know, may vary in terms of how a law is actually carried out. And there may be some states that may have some, let's say, exceptions,
Okay.
or I'll call it exception clauses, but I'm not using any kind of legal terms here, but I'm just making up some words here to make a point. So some states may vary in the exceptions that they make. Others may interpret the law in a more absolute way. So I think it's up to people to learn from whichever state that they're living in, specifically how their state is interpreting the law.
Okay. Now let's come back to one of the things that I mentioned earlier. I think when your phone went off. That is, now I want us to shift our focus to the black family in the U.S. and maybe globally, but let's focus on the U.S. for a while. Let's look at feminization of the black male. Is this something that has come to your attention? Is it a worry? Should we be worried about a lot of black male, not just being the alphabet people, but it looks like there's now the advocacy, the feminist advocacy is really having that impact where straight men or straight men are becoming more feminized. I don't know if I make sense to you. You get me.
Yeah, I get you. This is definitely something that a lot of people are seeing as a growing problem. And it from appearances, it seems as though it's increasingly problematic for a man to be a man in the conventional sense of the word. It's increasingly problematic for a man to express masculinity and to express manhood and to identify with those things typically that men identify with, or to engage things in a way that men typically engage. For example, you may have a woman who is a chef and you may have a man who is a chef. And a man can still be a manly, masculine chef. He doesn't have to become effeminate just to be a chef, right? You will have a woman who is a florist. You will have a man who is a florist. Doesn't mean that the man now has to be effeminate because he's into botany and in particular flowers and floral arrangements and so on and so forth, right? And so that's what I mean when I say those are two examples when I say when men do something the way a man would do it. So there are things that men are typically known to do, to be involved in, right? That's kind of like manly stuff, and we all think that that's for the most part pretty okay. And then there's things that men do that women also do. That's just a general thing that people do, but they do it in a manly way or in a man's type of way. Another example I'll give you, when you look at the way women play with babies and the way men play with babies, it's very different. It's just different. It doesn't mean now that because we're playing with a baby, the man has to become very feminine in his engagement of the child. He's playing with the baby, she's playing with the baby, and they have their own ways of doing it. And people are beginning to feel more and more that heterosexual men are being penalized for being heterosexual, that they're being demonized for being heterosexual, and that their rights are being encroached on more and more for being heterosexual. So it seems that heterosexualism is now under fire. And that's what a lot of people are thinking, and I think that's where a lot of the pushback is coming from.
Yeah. So on another front, like even in relationship, now a lot of black female would say that we want a real man, we want the man. The list go on and on endlessly. But when the male behave like men, there's a problem. where do we start to stop this? Is it because these days I've read an article where the writer was warning that these days a woman will take their daughter to a conference that talk about women empowerment, but I will never think of a program that talk about men empowerment or strengthening the man's lifestyle in the society, and then they are forgetting that this female that they are growing to become alpha female and whatnot are going to grow to want to marry these same boys that they are neglecting in the name of building the woman. Where do we start to curb this situation?
Well, see, this goes back to what I was saying at the outset, and that is we have to get back to our way of doing things, because culturally we had a system in place that worked pretty well. Okay. And we've not had, because of the interruptions of the Arab enslavement, and then after that the European chattel enslavement, and then after that Jim Crow and apartheid, and then post-colonialism and post-colonialism and so on and so forth, right? Because of all of these interruptions and incursions, we've not really had the opportunity to upgrade on the existing practices that we had that worked so well, right? But what we had was a rites of passage. What we had was a way of socializing and raising our young men and women to feel good about themselves, to come into their own. It left little to the imagination. People weren't confused and left to themselves. They were helped to understand who and what they are in the bodies that they were in. And for the most part, it worked quite well. And what we need to do is get back to that, upgrade what needs to be upgraded, and cherish and honor those things that are tried and true. We got to get back to these things. These things, they had a rhyme and a reason. It wasn't just arbitrarily done. When nature comes along and says to a young woman, congratulations, you're fecund, you're fertile, you're now able to bear children, the Africans understood this natural process. So therefore, they socialized women and the society to be ready to receive it. Now, you weren't just left to yourself, and then you got your menses and you were just like, oh my God, what's going on? I don't know what's going on, etc., etc. Not only that, Fuad, but biologically speaking, we didn't even have women getting their menses as young as they're getting them today. It was an anomaly for an African child to get to a female to get her menses at 8, 9 years old, 7 years old. It was an anomaly.
Yeah. Now let's look at we are still at the black family. The increase of single parenthood, and when I say single parenthood, I know a male can also become a single parent, but most of the cases it turns out to be our mothers who bear the brunt of single parenthood. What can we do, or where do we start to curb this situation? Because I believe that this has also played a lot of role in the first subject that we discussed about male or men being feminized. Because if a child grows up in a family, I'm not saying all the time, but in most cases, without having any male experiences, something can go wrong right there.
Well, from the get-go, the African family has been under assault where North America is concerned. That's never stopped. So the question is a bit of it's a great question, but it presupposes that this is something that maybe has, kind of come up into its own in the last so many dozen years. This has been the inception of America, particularly where Africans are concerned, that the African family has been under assault, and by design. it is supposed to be broken and not working very well. That's by design. That's intentional. So your question is a good one. What can we do about it? And I think one of the things that we have to do, again, is we have to approach this and conceptualize it and identify the problem from within our own cultural framework. We don't have any other cultural framework to work with. The African in America doesn't have an Asian worldview to work with, a Native American worldview to work with. They have their own worldview from which they can conceptualize and strategize and make sense out of, define, interpret, solve the things that they're grappling with. So one of the things that I'm gonna propose, put out here for discussion, it's not the only thing to do, and it's a little bit radical. In a way, it's radical. In a way, it makes perfectly good sense. There's nothing radical about it at all. But one of the things I'll put out there is that I think that the Africans in America, they need to aggressively look to create families with African immigrants. I think they need to take advantage of that influx of African immigrants coming in. And I think the two need to come together and learn from each other and heal with each other and strengthen each other and form not only professional and academic and collegial networks, they need to form intimate networks. And we need to rebuild with our own again.
Okay.
And I think that's is not the only way, but I do think that that's, and it's already beginning to happen, particularly with the year of return that was held in 2020 here in Ghana. You know, there were a lot of folks who came back with more than just memories.
Wow. I want to talk to some of those couples, lucky ones.
But yeah, we do. We need to be more aggressive and we need to be more strategic about bringing those bonds together. Here's why I say, in a lot of ways, it makes perfect sense and it's not radical. Fuad, look what happened when we were brought to America. What happened? Were we not torn away from each other?
Exactly.
Well, then bring it back apart. Bring it back together. Bring back together that which was torn apart. And that which was torn apart is us from you, meaning the us being the Africans in America and the you being those Africans, those of us here on the continent, right? So then if we were torn away from each other, perfectly good sense to repair that tear and bring us back together. So I think there should be programs. I think there should be campaigns. I think there should be NGOs. I think there should be grants. I think there should be all manner of things put in place to help introduce young and not so young African Americans to African immigrants.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Let me give you a hands of applause for that. So we are about to wrap up. So let's come home. Let's come to Ghana. Since you've been to Ghana, it's been about 7 years or 8?
8.5.
8.5. Congratulations.
Yes.
And now you are a Ghanaian citizen with your Ghana passport and all of that.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am official citizen.
Yes. So still on men being feminized. Do you see that creeping in Ghana too, or we are okay here?
Well, I think for the most part, I think our men are still men, and our women are still women for the most part. Okay. There are some, little hiccups here and there that's on the rise. And I think in part some of that is to be expected because numbers are growing. So when numbers are growing, there's a lot of everything that's going to grow with it, But I think for the most part, I think, people's identity, their gender, how they identify, still remains largely intact. I think here in Ghana, men pretty much still enjoy being men, and women pretty much still enjoy being women, and the two seem to very much enjoy each other.
Okay. Maybe the next time we'll look at polygamy in the African society. Maybe I'll have one male in the studios with yourself, and we'll look at that. How can?
Well, you know, I
Uh-huh.
keep saying this. You can't look at polygamy without looking at polyandry
This one,
because
no.
one is happening officially and the other is happening unofficially.
Okay, so this one, listen to the effect I'm giving you. Yes, this one, I give a gunshot to that.
And by the way, Fuad, adultery is not polygamy. So I just want to make that announcement. Ghana, please
Yeah.
keep in mind and remember,
Yes.
my fellow Ghanaians,
Yeah.
adultery is not polygamy, and polygamy is not adultery.
Adultery,
So
yeah.
I hope our Ghanaians are listening to that.
Yes, yes, yes. So, Doc, thank you so much. At this point, if you have anything extra, okay, yes, I have my extra question to you. You were talking about the year of return. The year of return is something fantastic, but it was the same year that we had a year of return that a cathedral was built to also welcome you guys, some of you. What's your take on the cathedral? Quick one. Then you whatever you have to say, then we go.
I think that a much more productive move would have been to build a national library that rivals the Library of Congress, or a state-of-the-art science lab,
Mm.
a state-of-the-art museum, a state-of-the-art university, something like that. I think would have served the country much better and would have been more available and accessible to folks of all faiths, including persons like myself who are traditionalists.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you very much. So if you have any shout out or anything to say, then I'll let you go.
Thank you. I want to give a shout out to the Wellness Communiversity on Onjas. Hey, everybody. Keep your head up, stay marvelous, stay fantastic, and let's continue to build beautiful things together.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kanida Goose. We are grateful for you this evening on the Global African Conversation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so that was Dr. Kanida Goose right there speaking to us on multiple of subjects here tonight. We spoke about the abortion right debate in the U.S. We also look at feminization of men. We look at where did we go wrong with a lot of black people, especially black male, becoming alphabet men. When I say alphabet men, the HBD, BT, PP, those stuff. You know what I'm saying? And quite an amazing topic that we had here tonight. Thank you, each and everyone that did the listening and those who did the watching on Facebook. In about a couple of hours, the whole show will be up on YouTube at the YouTube channel. That is the Global African Conversation, so that those of you who are not Facebook friendly, you can have access to them over there and enjoy this educative interaction with the one and only Dr. Kanida Goose. Yes, those of you who used to follow me on S Live Africa Online Radio, she used to be a regular guest over there, and she's going to be coming into the studios when we are set for the studio discussions. So, guys, next week we'll be looking at how maybe polygamy can solve, or is it a problem? We'll look at that. Yes, she also is advocating for female to also have multiple men, but it's already happening. It's already happening, but in the African, we're going to discuss some of these things in the African context right there. And I want to say a big shout out to Yahuda Quintana, my one and only producer, who keeps me up and grinding and holding me down like gravity. Thank you so much for being there. And everyone that did the listening. My name is Kwabena Bibini Barima, aka call me DJ Fuad, the public enemy who is no one. We out.